The station floated silently above the blue-green planet of Eridani 5. Ships of all shapes and sizes came and went, docking at the massive central hub. Humans, aliens, and hybrids moved about in a busy flow, speaking languages that echoed in metallic corridors and vibrant lounges. The station was meant to be a meeting place for many species, a symbol of peace and unity in the galaxy. Yet in one corner of the bustling station, a small alien named Lyra felt very alone. Lyra's species had a natural fragrance, strong, complex, and rich, like a forest after a storm mixed with spices. On her home planet, it was normal and even pleasant, a sign of health and vitality. But here, in the crowded station filled with unfamiliar beings, her scent made others recoil. No one wanted to sit beside her, no one smiled at her, and conversations seemed to stop when she approached. She clutched her small bag tightly and moved slowly through the corridors, keeping to herself. Her large eyes, shimmering shades of amber, watched the crowd, hoping maybe this time someone would not mind her presence. But it never happened. Even when she tried to join a table at the station's cafeteria, chairs stayed empty, and whispers floated around her. Lyra lowered her head and sat quietly at the far end of the room, careful not to disturb anyone. The humans on the station moved differently from others. They laughed easily, touched objects curiously, and often approached things that seemed strange. Lyra watched them from a distance, wondering why they were so brave, so bold. They were unlike the aliens she knew, who kept to their own kind or avoided unfamiliar scents and sounds. One human in particular caught her attention. He was tall, with brown hair slightly curling at the edges. His clothes were simple, a worn blue jacket over a white shirt, but he carried himself with an open, relaxed confidence. His name, she would later learn, was Ethan. That day, Lyra sat, alone in the observation deck, staring at the endless expanse of stars. She liked the quiet here, away from the crowd. The large windows gave a perfect view of the station's lights, reflecting against the nearby planets and asteroids. She breathed, in slowly, though she could not escape her own scent, and sighed. Ethan entered the observation deck with a small tray of food. He noticed the empty seats scattered around, and then he noticed her, small, delicate, sitting alone, a slight glow around her from the soft light of the stars. Something about her presence drew him closer. He didn't think about her scent. He didn't think about the whispers or stares from others. He only saw someone alone in a vast place. He walked toward her and asked softly, "Is this seat taken?" Lyra looked up, startled. No one had spoken to her like that in days. Her amber eyes widened and she shook her head. Ethan smiled, setting the tray down beside him. "I'm Ethan," he said, offering his hand. Lyra hesitated, then placed her small hand in his. It felt warm, grounding, and for a moment she forgot the station, the crowd, and her scent. "I'm Lyra," she replied, her voice soft, melodic, and trembling slightly. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, though the seat beside her had been empty for a reason that didn't concern him. She shook her head again. For a while they just sat, watching the stars. Ethan ate quietly, while Lyra kept her hands folded on her lap. She noticed his calmness, his ease with silence. No one rushed him, no one judged him. For the first time since leaving her planet, she felt a tiny spark of hope. After a moment, Ethan spoke again. "Where are you from?" Lyra hesitated. Many species told her stories of home were strange, confusing, or boring. But Ethan's face encouraged her, so she began. "I come from the forests of Thalira," she said. "It is a place full of trees, taller than your tallest building, rivers that glow in the moonlight, and flowers that sing when the wind passes through. It is beautiful." Ethan's eyes widened in wonder. "I've never heard of a place like that. It sounds amazing." "It is. But I left because I had to," she whispered. "Here, everyone avoids me because of my scent. It is normal, for my kind, but not for them. I am Alone, Ethan nodded slowly, listening without judgment. I can see that, he said. But being alone doesn't have to last forever. You're here now, and maybe it's not as permanent as it seems. Lyra looked at him unsure. She wanted to believe him, but had been disappointed too many times before. It is hard to believe that, she admitted. I understand, Ethan said. But sometimes, all it takes is one person to change how things feel. I don't mind your scent, in fact. He paused, smiling gently. It reminds me of home. Earth smells like forests, wet soil, and flowers after rain. Yours, it makes me feel something similar. Lyra blinked. No one had ever said anything like that. She felt warmth in her chest, a sense of connection she hadn't known she could feel. For the first time, she didn't feel so small, so invisible. Around them, other aliens glanced and whispered, but Ethan didn't notice. He continued speaking, asking about her planet, her culture, and her life. Lyra answered cautiously at first, then with more ease. She realized talking with him wasn't frightening, it was freeing. Hours passed like minutes. The observation deck, once a place of solitude, became a space of trust. Lyra laughed softly at one of Ethan's jokes, and he returned the laughter with a smile. She had never expected this, an alien and a human sharing stories without fear or judgment. When the station's lights shifted for the evening cycle, Ethan stood. I'll come back tomorrow, he said. If you're here, I'll sit with you again. Lyra nodded, feeling lighter than she had in years. For the first time, she believed she might not be so alone in this crowded station after all. As Ethan walked away, other aliens whispered and stared, but Lyra didn't care. For the first time, she realized that maybe, just maybe, someone could see her for who she really was. Not just her scent, but her mind, her heart, and her soul. And that thought, fragile yet bright, carried her through the long night as the stars outside the observation deck twinkled like a promise of new beginnings. The next morning, Lyra arrived at the observation deck earlier than usual. The station's corridors were still quiet, and sunlight from the nearby star filtered through the windows, creating patterns on the metallic floor. She held her small bag close, unsure if she was ready to face another day of being ignored. To her surprise, Ethan was already there, leaning casually against the window ledge, looking out at the swirling colors of a nearby nebula. He turned and smiled when he saw her. Good morning, Lyra, he said warmly. I saved you a seat. Lyra hesitated, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Her amber eyes flicked around, noting that no one else was near. Slowly, she walked to the seat he had indicated and sat down. I thought I might find you here, Ethan continued, taking a seat beside her. This place, it's perfect for thinking, isn't it? Lyra nodded quietly. Yes, it is quiet here. And the stars feel close. Ethan smiled. Close, but still far away, like everything we dream of. He glanced at her, noticing the small gestures of nervousness, how she twisted her fingers, how she adjusted her bag. You don't have to be nervous around me, you know. I know, Lyra whispered, though her voice trembled slightly. She had been alone for so long, and the thought of someone choosing to sit beside her was still strange. Ethan leaned back and observed her more closely. Tell me about your planet again. I want to know more. Lyra's eyes brightened. She had told him a little yesterday, but this time she felt safer sharing more. Thalira has forests that touch the clouds. Rivers glow like silver under the moon. And the flowers, they make songs with the wind. Every scent, every sound is part of life. It is peaceful and alive. Ethan listened intently, fascinated. It sounds magical, he said. I wish I could see it. You would like it, Lyra said softly. But you could never stay long. The air is different. Even your body would feel strange. She paused, unsure if she wanted to say more. I left to learn about the universe. But here, I feel small and alone. Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. I can't change how others feel, but I can be here, and I will. You don't have to face it alone. Lyra blinked, surprised by his confidence. No one had ever offered her companionship without hesitation or fear. Her heart felt lighter, as if a small door inside her had opened. They spent the next few hours talking. Ethan asked about her family, her school on Thalara, the games they played in the glowing forests. Lyra answered, her voice gaining strength. She even laughed when he tried to imitate the sound of Thalira's singing flowers, failing miserably. A few aliens passed by, glancing curiously at the unusual pair. Whispers followed them, but Ethan ignored them. He seemed determined to make her feel comfortable, as if nothing else mattered. At one point, Lyra admitted, I never thought anyone would sit beside me, willingly. They always leave, or they whisper, You're kind, humans. You are different. Ethan smiled, shrugging. Maybe, but some of us don't follow what everyone else thinks. Some of us choose our own path. And right now, my path is here, with you. Lyra's amber eyes widened. She had never expected such words. With me? She repeated softly. Yes, Ethan said. I want to learn, to understand, and to see your world through your eyes. Your scent, your stories, all of it. It reminds me of home, in a way I didn't know I needed. Lyra felt warmth spread through her chest. For years, she had felt like a stranger in every place she visited. But here, in this quiet corner of the station, she was seen, not as a strange scent, not as an outsider, but as someone there. The next day, Lyra arrived at the observation deck with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. She had spent the night replaying every word Ethan had said, feeling a lightness in her chest she hadn't known in months. Today, she hoped she could continue where they left off. Ethan was already there, leaning against the window as if he had been waiting just for her. His smile was calm and genuine, and he waved as soon as he saw her. Good morning, Lyra, he said. I saved a seat for you. Lyra's amber eyes softened. Good morning, Ethan. She walked over and sat beside him, adjusting her bag. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply watched the stars together. The vastness of space made them feel small, yet strangely connected. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. Do you ever miss your home? He asked. Lyra nodded. Every day. The forests, the rivers, the glowing flower, they are part of me. I thought I wanted to see the universe, but leaving home left a space inside that nothing has filled. Ethan leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. I understand. I've felt that too. Earth is home, but sometimes the universe calls us to explore. It's strange, isn't it? Wanting to leave yet missing where we came from? Yes, Lyra said softly. It is strange. She hesitated, then added, I never thought anyone could understand. Ethan smiled. Maybe that's why we need to listen to each other's stories. Sharing them can make us feel less alone. Lyra took a deep breath and began to speak. She described Thalira's forests in more detail, the towering trees with leaves that shimmered in different colors, the rivers that glowed silver under the twin moons, and the flowers that made music when the wind passed through them. Her voice grew steadier as she painted the images, and Ethan's eyes widened in, Oh, I can almost see it, he said, grinning. The rivers, the trees, it must be amazing to walk there. It is, peaceful and alive, Lyra replied. I have never seen anything like it elsewhere. She paused, thinking of her family. My parents taught me to respect every living thing, even the smallest insect or the quietest flower. That is why leaving home was so hard. Ethan nodded. I understand. My family taught me the same, to notice things others ignore, to value kindness, and to listen. He leaned back, looking at the stars. It's funny how, even on different planets, some lessons are the same. Lyra smiled faintly. Yes, I think. Maybe that is why I feel comfortable talking to you. You listen, really listen. Others, they avoid me. I notice, Ethan said. And I want to notice. You're not strange, Lyra. You're unique. And that uniqueness, it's beautiful. Lyra's heart warmed at his words. No one had ever spoken to her like this, with genuine understanding and care. Her scent, which had always been a source of isolation, didn't seem to matter to him at all. They continued sharing stories for hours. Ethan described Earth's oceans, its vast forests, the mountains capped with snow, and the rain that made the soil smell fresh. Lyra listened, captivated, imagining places she had never seen. In turn, she told him about the Lyra's festivals, the ways her people celebrated the cycles of the moons, and the songs sung during the glowing nights. "You make me want to see your world," Ethan said finally. "And I hope someday, maybe you could show me." "I would like that," Lyra admitted softly. "It is hard to imagine sharing it with someone, but you listen without judging." Ethan smiled. "I think that's what friends do. And maybe over time more people could understand your world too." Lyra hesitated. "I doubt it. Most aliens avoid me because of my scent. They cannot see beyond it. Humans, maybe some can, but I can," Ethan said firmly. "And I will. The rest they might learn if they see that someone can accept it." For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to believe it. Maybe she didn't have to be alone. Maybe there was hope for connection beyond the boundaries she had feared. The conversation shifted to smaller, lighter things. Ethan asked about the games she played as a child, the plants she grew on her balcony, and the favorite foods of Thalira. Lyra laughed, realizing how much she had missed simple sharing. She told him about the songs of the windflowers, how they sounded like whispers of old stories. Ethan tried to mimic the sound, failing comically, and Lyra couldn't stop laughing. "You have a good sense of humor," she said, smiling warmly. "I didn't think anyone could make me laugh so easily here." "And you make it easy," Ethan replied. "Being around you, it's not strange or frightening, it's nice." Lyra felt her chest fill with warmth. She had spent so long hiding, avoiding others, believing she could never belong. But here, with Ethan, the station felt different. It was not cold or unwelcoming. It was full of possibility. As the station's lights shifted to evening mode, casting a soft golden glow, Ethan stood. "I have to finish some work, but I'll come back tomorrow," he said. "Same time, same place?" Lyra nodded, her heart lifting. "I'll be here." Ethan gave her a final reassuring smile before leaving. Lyra watched him go, then looked out at the stars. She realized that for the first time in months, she didn't feel completely alone. Someone had seen her for who she really was. Not just her scent, not just her alien form, but her thoughts, her stories, and her heart. Around her, other aliens passed by, whispering as usual. Some stared, some shook their heads. But Lyra didn't notice. For the first time, the whispers felt distant and unimportant. What mattered was the small, growing connection she had with a human who had chosen to sit beside her. She stayed in the observation deck until the lights dimmed further, letting the stars fill her vision. She felt hope, a fragile, shining hope that someone could understand, appreciate, and even care for her in a world that had always turned away. Lyra smiled softly, closing her eyes for a moment. Tomorrow, she would return. And maybe the day after, that. And each day, little by little, the emptiness inside her would start to fill. The stars twinkled beyond the window, silent witnesses to the first true friendship Lyra had ever known on the station. And for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine that she might not be alone in the galaxy forever. Days turned into a quiet rhythm. Each morning, Lyra went to the observation deck, and each morning, Ethan was there, waiting with a smile. Their conversations grew longer, their laughter louder, and slowly, the loneliness that had once weighed on Lyra began to fade. But something else was happening too. Other aliens on the station had begun to notice them. At first, they only glanced and whispered as they walked by. They still avoided the seats near Lyra, still wrinkled their noses at her scent. Yet they also noticed something unusual. Ethan, Never left. He stayed beside her, talking and laughing as if the scent that made everyone uncomfortable did not exist. One evening, as the artificial lights dimmed to mimic sunset, Ethan leaned back in his chair. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I think your scent is comforting." Lyra blinked in surprise. "Comforting? Most say it is too strong." "Maybe it's strong," Ethan admitted, "but it reminds me of Earth. After rain, when the soil is wet and the air is thick with the smell of plants, it feels alive. That's what your scent reminds me of. Life." Lyra's amber eyes shimmered. No one had ever said such words to her. To hear that something others rejected could be a source of comfort for someone, it felt like a miracle. "Do you really mean that?" she asked quietly. "I do," Ethan said, smiling warmly. "It makes me feel at home." For the rest of the evening, Lyra couldn't stop thinking about his words. She had spent so long believing her scent was a curse, something that would always push others away. But to Ethan, it was not a barrier, it was a bridge. The next day when they sat together again, a pair of young aliens stopped nearby. They didn't sit, but they lingered, pretending to look out the window while stealing glances at Lyra and Ethan. Lyra noticed them immediately and lowered her eyes, nervous. Ethan, however, greeted them casually. "Beautiful view today, isn't it?" he said. The aliens looked startled but nodded quickly before hurrying away. Lyra sighed. "They still cannot stay near me." "Maybe not yet," Ethan replied. "But they're curious. Curiosity is the first step to understanding." Lyra thought about his words long after he left. Could her scent, once hated, truly become something others might learn to accept? Over the following days, the whispers in the observation deck grew, louder. More aliens watched from a distance. Some frowned in disapproval, but others seemed curious, even thoughtful. Slowly, the sharp avoidance began to soften into hesitation, and hesitation began to turn into interest. One afternoon, as Ethan told a funny story about trying to cook on Earth, a young alien with blue skin approached cautiously. "Is it really not so bad?" the alien asked, looking at Ethan. Ethan turned to him with a friendly grin. "Not bad at all, it reminds me of home." The alien sniffed the air carefully. His face twitched, but he didn't run away. He simply nodded and walked off, muttering to himself. Lyra's heart raced. It was a small moment, but for her, it felt enormous, you see, Ethan said softly. "They're starting to think differently. You've lived with this scent all your life. Maybe others just need time to understand what it really means." Lyra stared at him, a slow smile spreading across her face. "You make it sound possible." "It is possible," Ethan assured her. "Change always starts with one step. And you've already taken it." From then on, Lyra carried herself differently. She no longer rushed through the station with her head down. She walked with more confidence, even when others looked at her strangely. She began a tinge eso. The station's days moved forward like the turning of quiet gears. What had started as whispers and glances was now becoming something larger. More aliens were curious about Lyra. Some still avoided her, but others began to ask Ethan quiet questions. In the corridors, why does he sit with her? Why does he not mind the scent? And Ethan always answered with the same calm honesty. Because it reminds me of home. Because it is not something to fear. One evening, as they sat together in the observation deck, Ethan leaned forward with an idea. "Lyra," he said, "what if we invited others to learn about your culture? Not just through words, but through food, music, and stories." Lyra blinked, uncertain. "You mean a gathering?" "Yes," Ethan said, his eyes lighting with excitement. "A cultural exchange. Humans have done it before with other species, sharing what makes each world special. If others could experience your world even in small ways, maybe they would see more than your scent." Lyra hesitated. The thought of standing before so many was frightening. But then she remembered the way that human woman at the last gathering had said, "It smells like rain in a forest. I like it." That memory gave her courage. If you help me, I will try, she whispered. Ethan grinned. Of course I'll help you. Over the next few days, they prepared together. Lyra gathered small items she had brought from Thalira, a polished stone that glowed faintly in the dark, a piece of cloth dyed in colors that shifted under light, and a small container of dried petals from the singing flowers. Ethan, in turn, spoke to the station's organizers and arranged a space for the gathering. When the evening came, the hall was filled with beings from many species. Some came out of curiosity, others out of caution, and a few simply because they trusted Ethan. The air was tense at first. The moment Lyra entered, her scent filled the room. Several aliens flinched, but Ethan raised his voice kindly. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "We are here tonight not to judge differences, but to learn from them. This is Lyra, my friend. She has come from a world filled with life and beauty, and tonight she wants to share a little piece of it with us." Lyra's hands trembled, but Ethan's reassuring glance steadied her. She stepped forward slowly, placing the glowing stone on the table. Gasps filled the room as the stone shimmered, casting soft light that rippled like water across the walls. "This is from my planet, Thalira," she began softly. "The stones of the rivers hold the light of the moons. They glow at night to guide us through the forests." The aliens leaned closer, captivated by the gentle light. Lyra then unfolded the dyed cloth, holding it up so the shifting colors shimmered in the hall's lamps. "These colors come from flowers that change with the wind. We wear them during festivals when we sing under the stars." A murmur of wonder passed through the crowd. Even those who had frowned when she entered now looked curious. Finally, Lyra opened the small container and spread the dried petals across the table. The scent rose stronger than ever, rich, earthy, and alive. Many aliens instinctively stiffened, but Ethan stepped forward, picking up a petal and holding it to his nose. "This," he said, "smells like earth after the rain. It reminds me of home, of walking in forests and breathing the air of life. It is not something to fear. It is something to remember." The room grew silent. Slowly, one by one, a few aliens approached. A tall, scaled being leaned forward to sniff the air. His face tightened, then softened. "It is strong," he admitted, "but not unpleasant. It feels natural." Another alien, small with silver skin, touched the cloth and smiled faintly. "The colors remind me of the auroras on my planet." Encouraged, Lyra spoke more confidently. She told them about Thalira's singing flowers, about the glowing rivers, where children played, about the songs of her people that echoed through the forests at night. Her voice grew steadier, filled with pride instead of fear. To everyone's surprise, Ethan pulled out a small device and played music from Earth. Simple tunes, soft and rhythmic. "This is from my world," he explained. "Different from Lyra's, but like her songs, it carries memory and feeling." The hall slowly filled with the sound of Earth's melody mixing with the scent of Thalira's petals. The atmosphere softened, and the tension melted into quiet wonder. Aliens began asking Lyra questions. What foods did her people eat? How did the flowers sing? Did her rivers really glow like silver? For the first time since arriving at the station, Lyra wasn't avoiding their eyes. She was meeting them, speaking with pride, her voice alive with joy. When the gathering finally ended, something had changed. Not everyone was convinced, but many left thoughtful, their minds open in ways they had not been before. Some even stayed behind to thank her. "You are brave," said the silver-skinned alien softly. "Your scent is strong, yes, but your stories are stronger." Lyra bowed her head, gratitude shining in her amber eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Later, as the hall emptied, Ethan and Lyra sat together by the table. The glowing stone still shimmered faintly, casting light across their faces. Lyra looked at him, her voice full of emotion. "I never thought I could stand before so many. But tonight, they listened." Ethan smiled, his eyes warm. "They did, and they will again. You opened a door tonight, Lyra. A door to understanding. Lyra felt her heart swell with something she hadn't felt in a long time: belonging. Maybe my scent will never disappear, she said. But maybe it doesn't need to. Exactly, Ethan replied. It's part of who you are, and now others are beginning to see it the way I do, not as a wall, but as a bridge. They sat together in the quiet hall, the glow of Thalira's stone lighting the space like a small moon. For the first time, Lyra felt truly seen, not just by one human, but by many. She realized her journey away from home had not been a mistake. It had led her here to this moment, where her differences had become her strength. Outside, the stars shone like scattered jewels, and inside, Lyra smiled with a new kind of courage. She was no longer invisible. She was part of the story of the station, and her scent was no longer a reason to hide. It was a reason to connect. The station had never felt the same after the cultural exchange. Word spread quickly through the long corridors, across the dining halls, and even into the busy docking bays. Aliens spoke in quiet voices about the glowing stone, the shifting cloth, and the strange petals that carried a scent many had once feared. But most of all, they spoke about Lyra. The alien who had once sat alone now became the subject of conversations filled with curiosity instead of avoidance. For the first time since leaving Thalira, she felt the weight of her isolation lifting. Still, not everything changed overnight. Some aliens continued to frown or step aside when her scent touched the air. But now there were also smiles, nods, and even small greetings. For Lyra, this was more than enough. It meant she was seen. One morning, as she walked with Ethan toward the observation deck, a group of younger aliens hurried past them. Instead of whispering, one of them looked at Lyra boldly and asked, "Are you the one with the glowing stone? Will you show us again sometime?" Lyra paused, surprised. Ethan nudged her gently, smiling. "Yes," she answered, her voice soft but sure. "I will show you again." The young aliens grinned and hurried off, leaving Lyra with a warm feeling in her chest. "You see," Ethan said, "the door is opening, wider." Later that week, the station leaders called a meeting. Ethan and Lyra were invited. When they arrived, the large hall was filled with representatives of many species. Some wore ceremonial robes. Others carried devices for communication. A tall figure with silver eyes stood and spoke. "We have seen change since the gathering. Many have learned from Lyra. We believe this station should host a regular cultural night, an event where every species can share parts of their world." Murmurs filled the room. Some nodded eagerly. Others hesitated. Then another voice spoke from the back. It was the scaled alien who had sniffed Lyra's petals at the exchange. "I agree. Fear fades when we understand." Lyra's courage showed us that. Lyra felt her hands tremble, but this time it was not fear. It was hope. She looked at Ethan, who gave her a reassuring nod. Finally, the council voted. The decision was made. The station would hold monthly cultural nights beginning, with one hosted jointly by humans and Thalirans. Lyra's heart raced. For so long she had believed her scent made her unwanted. Now it was part of a reason the station was uniting. The first cultural night arrived quickly. The hall was decorated with banners showing symbols of different worlds. Food from many planets was set on long tables, glowing or steaming or sparkling with colors. Strange instruments waited in the corner for music to be played. Lyra stood at the edge of the room, nervous once again. Ethan walked beside her, holding a small plate of earth fruits. "Ready?" he asked. "I don't know if I can," she admitted. Ethan shook his head. "You already did, Lyra. Tonight is not about proving yourself. It is about sharing joy." His words gave her strength. She stepped forward with him into the center of the hall. The crowd grew quiet. Lyra began by placing her glowing stone on a stand where all could see. The soft light spread across the room, gentle and calm. Then she scattered a few more dried petals, their scent rising strong and steady. For a moment, the old silence returned. But then a human voice called out cheerfully, "Smells like home after rain." Another voice, belonging to a feathered alien, added, "Smells like wild storms on my world." Laughter followed, any tension broke. Music B.